What happened to Creedence Clearwater Revival? In 1959, while attending Portola Junior High School in El Cerrito, California, classmates John Fogerty, Stu Cook, and Doug Clifford began playing together as the Blue Velvets, cutting their teeth on early rock instrumentals and the jukebox hits of the era. They later became a quartet with the addition of John's older brother Tom Fogerty and released a handful of independent singles to local radio. In 1964, the Blue Velvets joined the roster of San Francisco's Fantasy Records, a label that was primarily known for jazz artists like Vince Guaraldi and Dave Brubeck. In an attempt to compete with the burgeoning British invasion, label co-founder Max Weiss urged them to change their name to the Golliwogs. Despite releasing several singles over the next few years, their early efforts yielded little attention, and in 1966, John Fogerty and Doug Clifford were drafted into the U.S. Armed Forces. Fogerty's time in the Army Reserves proved to be somewhat transformative in terms of shaping both his creative vision and political views, and in 1967, he and his bandmates gladly abandoned the unfortunate Golliwogs moniker in favor of the more eclectic Creedence Clearwater Revival. By then, Saul Zaentz had bought out Fantasy's original partners and promptly offered the newly minted CCR a contract, albeit one that would later come back to haunt them. The group released their self-titled debut album in May 1968. Although it bore a few sonic traces of the psychedelic era, it served to introduce the scorching delivery, tight arrangements, and southern musical influences that would become CCR's hallmark. It also gave them their first hit in Susie Q, a sprawling cover of Dale Hawkins' 1957 rockabilly song, which found its way into the top 40 in November of that year. The album also cemented John Fogerty's all-around role as the band's frontman, chief songwriter, lead guitarist, producer, and arranger. Having had their first taste of success, CCR entered their peak period a few months later with the release of Bayou Country, their breakout second album. The first of 3 LPs released in 1969, the album reached number 7 on the Billboard 200 and was certified platinum thanks in large part to lead single Proud Mary and its swampy B-side Born on the Bayou. With its catchy tune, Mississippi River imagery, and themes of escape, Proud Mary was an immediate hit and went on to become one of CCR's most enduring songs. Of the many covers it inspired, it was Ike and Tina Turner's revved up 1971 soul rendition that did nearly as well as CCR's, earning the duo a Grammy Award. Riding a wave of newfound momentum, CCR released their third album, Green River, in August 1969, giving them their first chart topper and adding 2 more top 5 singles, the jaunty but foreboding Bad Mood Rising and the twangy Green River, to their growing clutch of hits. They also toured relentlessly in support of it and were one of the headlining acts at the Woodstock Festival in upstate New York that summer, although Fogerty deemed their set unworthy of inclusion on the live album and asked that would be omitted. Completing this remarkable year, CCR released their 4th album, Willie and the Poor Boys, in November. The harmony and groove-filled Down on the Corner gave them yet another top 5 hit, but it was Fogerty's gutsy protest song Fortunate Son that made a more lasting statement. Arriving at the zenith of America's involvement in the Vietnam War, Fortunate Son became one of the most defining anthems of the anti-war movement and has retained that status through subsequent decades. In 2013, the Library of Congress added it to its National Recording Registry for its cultural and historical significance. At the dawn of the 1970s, CCR was at its commercial peak, riding a string of hit albums and singles that placed them in the upper echelon of American rock music. Without pausing for reflection, they kicked off January 1970 with the double A-side of Traveling Band and Who'll Stop the Rain, appearing on the cover of the Rolling Stone magazine the following month. Two more instant CCR classics, Up Around the Bend and Run Through the Jungle, appeared a few months later as the group headed to Europe for their first international tour. With four more hit songs already on the charts, Looking Out My Back Door and Long As I Can See the Light helped turn the band's fifth album, Cosmos Factory, into a massive success, staying at number 1 for a 9-week stint in late 1970. By then, CCR had caught on globally as well, with the album also topping charts in Australia, the UK, and parts of Europe. They ended the year with yet another album, Pendulum, which yielded a pair of top 10 hits in Have You Ever Seen the Rain and Hey Tonight. It also marked the first time that CCR had made a record containing entirely original material, though the influence of their R&B and blues heroes remained, especially that of Booker T and the MGs, with whom they had recently jammed. It was also the final record to include the group's original lineup, as a disgruntled Tom Fogerty departed in February 1971. The price paid for Fogerty's unyielding control of CCR's affairs and creative vision was growing dissent among the other band members. After Tom's departure, they carried on wearily as a trio, with John reluctantly agreeing to cede some creative control to his remaining bandmates. However, even this attempt at democracy was somewhat heavy-handed. Rather than simply allowing Cook and Clifford a little more artistic input, he insisted that each member now write and sing his material to be split evenly on future albums. Their first release as a trio was Fogerty's Sweet Hitchhiker, an energetic rocker that proved to be CCR's final top 10 hit. Cook's bluesy B-side Door to Door made little impact. When their seventh album, Mardi Gras, was finally released in early 1972, it was maligned by critics as uneven and lacking cohesion, though the group's momentum still helped it achieve a number 12 chart placement on the Billboard 200. The growing frustration over the band's direction and its lousy contract with Fantasy continued to mount, and following a grueling 2-month tour, CCR called it quits in October of that year. For an impressive 5-year period, they had performed at the top of their game, leaving behind a deep catalog of studio albums and hit songs, all of which fell under the ownership of Fantasy Records. CCR certainly wasn't the first rock band to attach themselves to an unfavorable record contract, but the bitter legal battles between Saul Zaentz and John Fogerty, unfortunately, became a part of CCR's post-breakup mythology, stretching into the 2000s when Zaentz finally sold Fantasy to the Concord label, which attempted to restore some contractual goodwill with the band. Starting in the mid-70s, to deny them any more royalties, Fogerty rebuked the label by refusing to play any of his CCR material live. After the band was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1993 and his solo career saw a late 90s revival, he softened his stance and re-embraced his old catalog, much to the delight of longtime fans. Unfortunately, Tom Fogerty died in 1990, having mounted a moderately successful solo career, and in 1995, Cook and Clifford launched the Fogerty-less Creedence Clearwater Revisited, with various guest singers to take on the old catalog on the road. A proper reunion never materialized, though CCR has remained an iconic band with a multi-generational fanbase thanks to a steady succession of archival releases and compilations. In 2019, their Live at Woodstock set finally saw the light of day in honor of the festival's 50th anniversary. And as I'm recording this, Doug Clifford, Stu Cook, and John Fogerty are all alive and well. John Fogerty is still touring solo, performing his solo hits and, of course, the CCR catalog. And it took a while for John Fogerty to really have a successful solo career. He hit a bit of a slump in the mid-70s, but he revived his career with the Centerfield album in 1984. As for Creedence Clearwater Revisited, they quit touring in 2020, but like I said before, Doug Clifford and Stu Cook are alive and well. And that's what happened to Creedence Clearwater Revival. Thank you again for watching. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Give me some facts about the band that I failed to mention, and let me know who I should do next on the channel. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.